Simone Barreto, editor, visual effects artist, animator, NYU, right? Tisch School of the
Yes,
Arts, BFA in film and animation. You also went to SVA,
I did. I took classes at SBA, yeah, and then
animation
I was
classes,
in.
right?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, that's my old alma mater. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta love that school. But so initially that was your road, right? Like you were looking to get into animation, you were looking to get into all that stuff. What led you to, because now it's all about well, majority of it is editing and compositing, all that kind of stuff, visual effects, right?
Actually, it's I've been pivoting a lot lately. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy that it's the 40th anniversary of Ninja Turtles this year. And that's what really sparked my like really drive to be in animation. It was either this or like weapons design because I love the movie Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But there was way too much math for that. So I was like, let me just do animation because that's fun. And I went to, like you said, all the schools. I went to get my master's in California for a bit, and there's so much there. And I was blessed to be able to work on a lot of properties, even Ninja Turtles at one point. So that was a full circle moment. And then it just became one of those things where I couldn't draw. So what were my avenues available to me? So compositing, editing, those became key tools in my toolbox. And because I've always loved to direct and produce, being able to edit in animation is so much different than being an editor in film. Because an editor in animation starts from the beginning. And what I like to say is for film, editing is adding your voice to something that already exists within the framework of what you're given. In editing and animation, it's the exact opposite. You come in at the very beginning and you set the pace and you get to like basically have your voice form what is given. And so you go through animatics, you go through voiceover records and everything like that. And so after you and I worked on animation and compositing and editing at animated storyboards. And then after that, I went to Titmouse, where that was my focus. And from then on, it just became a trajectory of setting up teams for success in editing. Starting there, where I worked on a Hasbro property called Hanazuki, Adult Swim property called Ballmasters, where those were really the drives. It's really how do we take this story and these still frames and really make them sing. And so that just, I was like dropped into the fire where they had like a theatrical short that was months behind. And so I came in and helped with that. And since then, it's just been, it's really taken a turn to being more team focused than it has been creative focus. And I think that everybody, especially in this field, they get to a point where that's the decision they have to make.
Right.
Are you going to stay creative focused or are you going to be, team oriented? And so, shortly, after Hanazuki finished and Ballmasters finished for the first season, there was just a lull that kind of everything was either wrapped up or canceled. And so I actually was picked up by a fashion company called PVH. They owned a lot of brands, but now they primarily own Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger. So I mean, there it was again. It just focused on the team and it focused on being, the one man band at first, but then creating a team that could do all of those like corporate videos, animations, social media assets, and things like that. And that's really where I've been. And so it's evolved since then, but really what I tell people is that I do branding in motion for corporations. So I bring their identity into a rather than a static, but into animation and into videography.
Right. So then when they brought you in, like you said, one man band, right? Were they at the time international or were they local to where you were?
Yeah, I mean they were definitely international as far as business, but local as far as the way that they were thinking for creative. And so everybody kind of like had their own idea. Everybody had their own like, hey, we're just going to do this for this place and this for that place. Like each organization and really did feel like it was separate organizations. They all kind of worked on things separately. Some of that is by design, just because for those brands specifically, the perception of those brands in other countries is very different than they are here. If you go to Europe, the perception of Tommy Hilfiger is way different than it is here.
So you have to deal and you have to, like, adjust to the cultural lens?
100%, 100%. And so that's always I mean, when you're doing creative, especially when you're doing creative as a profession rather than just doing work for yourself and being blessed to make that work, that's always going to be the case. It's always the case of just taking the framework that somebody else is giving you, or the questions and the desires and needs from somebody else's perspective, and translating them into a creative that really kind of delivers and then some. Everybody wants to tell you what they want, but they don't have the words to describe it. So as a creative, we have to develop that method of internalizing whatever it is that they're asking us for and delivering it in a way that they didn't even know that they wanted. Because generally that's what they think. Like, I
Right,
just
right,
need
right.
you to make pretty,
Yeah.
and they
So
don't know like what to do that.
you have to, like, translate from a creative perspective to, that corporate speak or whatever that they're gonna be able to understand, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and then back to creative, because then they need to be able to, in this instance, replicate it, indefinitely,
Right.
because, it like you said, it is really creating a new language for them that they can, speak wherever they're at.
Exactly. So, heading back or going back to, because you mentioned it, animated storyboards, that's actually where we
Yes.
met, and fun times, really interesting times. I think everybody was discovering their mode and, how they fit into everything, and that world was incredible. I mean, Super Bowl ads and animatics and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And you were editorial director when you were
Yeah, I
there?
mean, I held different titles there. I don't know that any one was more official than the last, but yeah,
Right.
basically
But so,
editorial
I
director
mean,
there.
some really fun projects, right? Pepsi, Katy Perry, CoverGirl, the infamous Frito-Lay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. I think that it was one of those, I always call it an inverse economic business model. The worse that the economy is, the more that people want to be sure that what they're creating is a success. And so they would come in and, yeah, like you said, we did, 12 animatics for a Super Bowl, for the NFL, and like four of them got made. And even that was like, holy crap, like that they made more than one. And so being able to work with, the Fortune 500, sometimes Fortune 100 companies, and be able to take it, like we just said, take those ideas that they have, these like general concepts, and bring them to reality. Because more often than not, we were dealing with, creatives within those organizations, less creatives that were part of agencies. So they weren't exactly as creative as, we were, and we had to just kind of decipher what they were trying to ask for.
Right, but then that kind of fit into or morphed into, working with, We Fly Coach, right? Because you took that
100%.
experience, with the animatics and all that kind of stuff, and then were able to move it into more of a live action or
For sure, for sure. And so they've spun off into a few things, because then there was Silver Spoon that does live graphics for the NFL now, which was just starting up when we were starting, VR, and when they were doing R&D with virtual and augmented reality for training for, military and law enforcement. So they were able to spin up a lot of it by using the technology that they had access to, which was a lot of motion capture that was probably used more than any other facility in the country.
right. Now, in terms of if anyone is looking to get into editing, or what are the steps that you think now they should be taking? Because your route was kind of a roundabout way of getting to it.
Mhm.
What would you say would be like the optimal way to do it today?
I think that the interesting thing is that there is no right way of getting into editing right now. I think that we all have access to the raw materials because we all have a phone, right? And we're seeing that with, 6-year-olds have YouTube channels and stuff like that. And so, edit theory and the way that you stitch together things, is almost becoming irrelevant depending on the platform, because certain things that, for you and I, the way that we would edit are just like completely no-nos. But when, you see it on TikTok or something like that, it's like, oh, that's just the standard. But the reality is, just get out and shoot something and put it together. The biggest obstacle that I have in my world is that when I go to pitch myself and create a demo reel or something like that, it's actually more difficult as an editor, because of the fact that it's not like people are gonna watch everything you've ever edited. So I have to take things that have been edited and put them together in a way that is unique and interesting. And so I always like to think of it as just taking random pieces of footage and try to create a story out of it. Try to create some sort of narrative that has a through line, because that's really what editing is. And being able to use family videos, photos, that kind of stuff really means that all you need is the passion and the desire to do it. Like with most creatives, a lot of schooling is great, but the passion to get it done is what's most important, because there's a lot of really talented people that aren't working.
Exactly. And, there is literally no excuse and, kind of like what you said, to having access to what you need to do the thing that you want to do. I mean, DaVinci Resolve, right? Free. Blender, free. You can, I mean, we all walk around with a production studio in our pocket. You
Yep.
know, it's like
Hmm.
there is no way that you can tell me that you want to create something, whatever, but you don't have the time, you don't have the money, you don't have, all these things, all these excuses out the window. When we were coming up, I think it was a little bit more difficult because we didn't have
Yeah.
access to all these things. So
Hmm.
I think that when we were coming up, it was more of a you really did need to know what it is that you had to know to
Yeah,
get that job, right? Now,
for sure.
there's so much being pumped out there. There's so much being put out into the world that it's almost a you're going to create it for yourself and you'll eventually get there no matter what. No matter
Hmm.
what, as long as you're putting it out there.
Absolutely. And I mean, just the speed that technology is going right now, um, there is no room to wait. Because I mean, the way that people can claim to be an editor as much as they want, and exactly like you said, when we were growing up and we were coming up in the industry, you had to rent equipment to get quality out of it, and so you were limited by what you had, you were limited by daylight, you were limited by all of those things. Nowadays, it's like, "Hey, I don't have to take this back, I can shoot at 4K, I could shoot at," depending on the phone, you can even get up to 8K in some of these phones, and then you can edit wherever you need to, and so I think that that is also being reflected in the professional community as well, because if you're looking for clients that are gonna bring you on, and they see that, hey, you have access to all of this, but you still have a limited portfolio, then how do I know that you're really going to bring that for me? Like, how do I know that you're going to make me a priority? How do I know that you are worth investing, thousands of dollars into a budget, or, God forbid, like millions of dollars into a budget, if, you're just sitting around and waiting for somebody to give you a camera, like, where are your edits? Where are your home videos? Where are your, you know, whatever it is, like interesting short films, or, avant-garde, things, music videos, all that stuff.
Now, do you still see that? Do you still see that as being something that people look for who are hiring? That they want to see, your stuff that's been done outside of a professional venue.
It doesn't inhibit you to have something that is something that I made for myself. I think what people are looking for is, just that you are creative. Like, what is your creative lens? If it is a video that you created for yourself, but it has something new in it, or the editing style is unique, or it is making the most out of what you are, that is going to get you more attention than making a standard video on a red camera, or something that you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars on. Because what somebody is going to look for is like, hey, I don't have the kind of budget. Can I create with what I have? And if you're going to tell them, like, not only can I create with what I have, but if you invest in me and you give me just a little bit, I'm going to take it to the next level. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, I can't do anything because you haven't provided.
Exactly, and it's they're also looking for a unique voice, right?
100%.
There's a cacophony of videos and, all the stuff out in the world that people really are trying to, like, get through the weeds to find that little golden nugget, And if you are, like you said, you're creating stuff for yourself, you're out there every single day, you're making all this, like, content, something's gonna come through. I mean, most of it is gonna be the same because a lot of people just copy, like, things that they see from everyone else, but there's gonna be that one dude out there, there's gonna be that one girl out there who's got that vision, and, might be you,
Yeah,
might be you.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Why
yeah,
shouldn't it be you?
exactly, exactly, and, I mean and the thing is, like, now I was just, talking to a friend of mine, and we were having this a very similar conversation. It's like, as long as you are passionate about what it is that you do, you wanna put it out there, whatever, you might not even be looking for a job. I've heard of people getting called just because of the stuff that they put out there.
Yeah. 100%.
Severance, the guy who does the intros for Severance, that's a case where
Yeah,
that happened. Absolutely fantastic, you know?
for
Again,
sure.
he's got a voice. He's got a vision. He's got a way of seeing the world. And it's not just about like, putting the work in. It's also about putting the work out there,
Mhm.
right? Because it's like
Yes,
how many
100%.
people 100% because how many people I mean, I'm guilty of this. I'm
Mhm.
massively guilty of this and I see it and I kick myself every single day. It's like I have an idea, I have all this, whatever, I get excited about it and I don't put it out.
Yeah.
And then I look back a few years later and I'm like, "Son of a gun, like, where would that have been? Where would I have been? Where would" all that kinda stuff, and, yeah, you just, like those are the shoulda, woulda, couldas of life,
Yeah.
but you
Mhm.
can't live through woulda, shoulda, coulda. It's like, learn that lesson, keep
Mhm.
moving forward. It's okay, right? It's like, it
100%.
didn't kill you, whatever, but you learned something from it, keep
For
going.
sure, for sure. And I feel that way about social media now. Like I have an Instagram that I don't post on, and mind you, a lot of the stuff that I post, a lot of stuff that I work on is for companies that have their own method of posting, and some of it, especially nowadays, is more internal. So it's not something that really could be posted anyway. But there's a lot of
Yeah,
that
if you're
that
working for
I'm
corporate.
just, yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. But and just everything that I've learned has kind of brought more to the forefront of like being a people person within a creative space is a almost lost art because the quintessential creative person isn't exactly the most like, uh, isn't a people person. They are just like focused on their thing. And that I've been able to be someone that people like to work with. So I parlay that as much as I can.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a skill.
that, yeah. Were you the one that sent me that Neil Gaiman commencement speech?
A
I
while
feel
ago.
so Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because that I watch that, like, regularly now, and I'm just like, you have to be good, on time, or good to work with, and you don't
yeah,
even have to be all 3, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I'm getting trapped in trying to be all 3, and I just need to make it work.
yeah,
Just get it
yeah,
done."
yeah, exactly. Alright, Simone, so, anyway, thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a
Absolutely
pleasure, man.
great.
It was a pleasure talking to you in general, man. We gotta do this more often.
We do, we do. So we went super quick. Like, this thing was
Yes, we did.
like
Yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
no, this is fantastic, we're probably gonna have to do a part 2
That
because,
sounds good to me.
there's so much yeah, I mean, the world is, like, so huge in what we do, and there's so many people out there who are wanting to experience it, wanting to do it, and all that kinda stuff, and we've got knowledge, you know? So putting
For
it out there
sure.
for them, fantastic, fantastic, and thank you for being a part of this.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Emma.